Welcome to
the Padilla Family Homestead.
Yes.
We are back for Tea Time with Jen, Season 2, Episode 12. We are nearing the end. We only have one more episode this season after this. Which is kind of crazy. So today is a fun topic, but before we jump in, we're going to talk about tea and what we are drinking. So I have a headache today, so I'm drinking some lavender chamomile, one of my favorites.
I'm drinking chamomile.
Just chamomile.
Plain chamomile.
Cozy for January time, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's good. All right, so we are going to jump in. If you're new here, my name is Jen. This is my husband.
Eugenio, also known as Junior.
Yes. He brings the life to the party.
Top
for
G.
Sure.
Not
So, we are basically, the Padilla Family Homestead is my baby. Tea Time with Jen, we do November, December, and January each year now. It's kind of become our thing. And we are, he joins me sometimes, but we're going to be sitting here talking. This is not scripted this time around. We are kind of have a topic we're going to go on. It's all about intentionally living and different areas in our life where we can focus on living with intention. So it's podcast style. You can put us on TV, let us play, put headphones on, clean your house, whatever. You don't actually have to look at us if you don't want to. But we are trying to give food for thought, things to talk about, things that we've talked about. And this is a good one. This is what I'm really passionate about. And I think you're pretty passionate on it now too.
Any feedback's welcome too.
Yes. We always love to hear from you guys in the comments. So today's is learning. How to intentionally learning, basically. Learn how to learn with intention, intentionally learning. It is a huge thing. So we've gone over tons of topics this season. We have tons of topics from last season. We'll have a playlist in the comments or the description below. But how do we overcome and how do we intentionally change something? Whether it's our mindset, our focus, emotionally dealing with people. We've talked about forgiving and letting go. We've talked about in the past parenting and relationships and approaching holidays and all the things, right? We've had many different topics over the last couple of years. And how do we implement these things? How do we make changes? How do we proceed in life? Right? Be informed without having fear. How do we do all this? We learn new skills. We implement new things into our life, whether they are skills to help us battle with our psyche or they're skills to help us in our household to physically do.
And sometimes I think it's more of trial and error too.
Sometimes.
Because just because we learn it doesn't mean we can know how to do it 100% the first time.
No.
But the more you do it, the more better you get at it.
Well, and I think that's where the intentionality comes in, because there's something in us that says, I'm not good at this, so I'm not going to try.
Right.
Like he talked about on one of our other videos, I used to say all the time I had a black thumb, I couldn't garden.
Right.
Like, that was my line. Guys, you would never believe that a few years later, I garden like crazy, right?
Keep
like
things alive.
I keep things alive. I still kill some things. But I had to learn, and it's a learning process, and it took intentionality to dive in and to learn. We've had health things. We've talked about that multiple times. Learning how to go from a fast food culture to cooking at home 95% of the time. That took some learning. And trying to figure out how to deal with our mindsets and deal with things healthy, being a parent of a teenager who's growing up and may soon leave the house. Like, there's so many things that change that, and through life, I really believe through life, if you are not growing, right, you're just staying the same, then are you really living? Yeah. And part of growing, a huge part of growing, is learning. You're going places, you're seeing things, you're learning new things. Whatever it is, things are changing, right? And you're learning to go with that flow. And doing that with intention is important, because we can learn the lyrics to a song that probably aren't that good, or we can learn new habits that are very addictive and are going to be detrimental to our families. We can learn things just because of our environment, right? And the things we're around, the people we're around, and it can really impact a lot of stuff. Yeah. And so doing it with intention is key, because that's when you learn the things that you need to learn that are going to help you grow in a positive direction. Right. And so that's kind of what we're talking about today.
Because the biggest thing I think about learning is that somebody out there already did the work, and it's just your part. You have to do your part in learning what they did in research and what they did to make that succeed. That way you can succeed with what you got to do.
I think for some things, yes. I think sometimes people, like Thomas Edison learned. I mean, that's why we have light bulbs and stuff.
Yeah.
So there's areas to still learn.
Yeah.
And do things new and better.
I was going with, like, back in the day, dysentery was such a huge thing.
Oh,
and nowadays,
it's not.
Nowadays, it's not, because people are doing things properly.
Right.
Kind of like, canning. If you don't can things properly, it can cause, issues in health if you don't do it right.
Well, that fear of that makes me very, very cautious and do things as appropriately as possible. Yes. So I think that there's a lot of resources available. It has never been an easier time to learn. We're in our classroom. That's what Roots and Refuge would call it, is our classroom. Yes. We are the Padilla Family Homestead, but we're in an apartment in California, and we are working our way to owning property and so forth. But right now we're still in our classroom. And so this is where I can learn all kinds of skills, right? I can learn how to use a grain mill and bake all my sourdough, have it become a habit. I can learn how to can and preserve and dehydrate and use those foods. I can learn on a small scale now. Sometimes a big scale. I can go to a farm, a U-Pick farm, and go harvest a bunch of food and then have the pressure to preserve it really fast. Like, there's things that I could do to learn right here where I am. So this is a very key topic for us, which is why I'm so passionate about it. Because who I was when we got married is very different.
It's very different
than who I am now. Yet I'm still the same person, right? Yeah. And so this is another key thing, is as you are learning and growing, because each individual has to learn and grow. As a couple, if you are married, it is important that you're intentionally learning and growing together. You don't have to know all the same knowledge, but spending that time in communication and encouraging the other person, giving feedback on things, really doing life together, you are going to grow at the same time.
I think from a guy's point of view is, if I see you learning these things, aside from you learning them, us as guys also hear things, and things get stuck in our heads, like, oh, interesting. And then you get in, like, it's like it's something that pulls you towards, like, so what is this you're learning about?
And it may not, in our case, it's a guy thing.
Yeah.
And in a lot of cases, it's a guy thing. But I think that it really comes down to is who is the person. Is there somebody who is addicted to learning new things or skills for that season? And if they are, and if you're communicating, then the other person, male or female, is going to pick up and going to learn along the way.
Yeah.
I was very driven because of being a new wife to start to learn how to cook. Then my daughter got really sick and we didn't know why. And 2020 happened and I'd already been on the path of building a pantry because I'm trying to cook from home, and I wasn't always building it with the best stuff, but I was trying. I was in the process of learning, right? And so then on that journey, I'm learning things, and certain things become habit, right? But I'm looking at, okay, so supply chains are an issue. So if I need some sort of natural medicine, which direction can I go? And I start learning about these things, right? Yeah. And I start implementing them. He can look at me like I'm nuts at first and be like, okay, cool, honey.
The biggest thing is like when you say pantry, it's not like store-bought canned food and stuff like that. It's actually having it built.
Well, some of it's store-bought canned.
I'm not saying all of it, though.
No, but it's like 5-gallon buckets of grains and rice and sugar and 1 pound of basil at a time, and really being able to cook from scratch. That took a long time to do and learn how to do it correctly. Okay, so how do we do this with intention, right? Let's take building a pantry, for example. I knew that it was important that we did it. Right. I didn't understand fully how and what I should be stocking it with. And that kind of changed as our diets changed and our lives changed and health stuff changed. But I was moving forward in a direction. I was taking steps. And as I'm doing that, I'm learning new things. I utilize YouTube like crazy. Now I utilize YouTube and Rumble, but I utilize the internet. Yeah. Okay. I used to utilize Pinterest a ton, but I don't utilize that as much. Instagram, I have a lot of people that I follow on Instagram who have blogs and so forth. And so I use these things that I was very familiar with. I knew Facebook and I was getting to know Instagram, and I was familiar enough with YouTube that those were my easy things to be able to search and find things. And as you are learning something, then it goes, oh, okay, well then it opens the door to this. Yeah. So I didn't understand how many spices I would go through until I started cooking. Yeah. And then I'm like, holy cow, this is going to cost us a fortune. So spices became really important for me to stock in the pantry. I learned that from trial and error. I learned that because I was going to spend a fortune buying these little tiny things of basil when I go through a ton of basil.
Yeah, and I think also learning, like for me and her, we have different flavor profiles. Mm-hmm. And when she first started, her flavor profiles to me were a little bit different. And she had to learn how
Mine
to
were all the
spice
Italian.
It up. Yeah.
The basic Italian, like basil, oregano, rosemary, thyme. I didn't even use parsley or sage. I had never used parsley or sage.
But she eventually learned to go the extra mile, and now she's cooking curry.
Yeah, like so it's figuring out how to use what you have and really figure that out. So part of that is trial and error and intentionally listening to my family, what they liked and what they craved. What our go-tos were on a normal basis. Those are the first things I wanted to learn how to duplicate and make. I still am not that great at cooking meat. I overcook it because I'm super paranoid about raw meat. So for the most part, besides chicken, that's like my baby. But he does like all the red meat because it tastes way better when he cooks it because I overcook it. So that's one of my goals that I really need to learn this year is I need to get good at cooking red meat and not burning it.
Hockey pucks.
Yeah, I don't want hockey pucks. So I've gotten better about hamburger. But like it changes. So okay, so we talked about a little bit about the pantry, right? Well, so what was I stocking? So I got onto this track of making bread. So I would buy the cheap, it was like 25 pounds for like $7 of flour at Costco. And it's probably way more than that now because of inflation. But it was bleached white flour, just the basic all-purpose. And I learned how to make bread with that. I used yeast, flour, water, and salt. And I made, oh my gosh, it tasted so good. We loved it. It was amazing. And then I started learning as after he got diabetes, I learned how bad that flour and how our body processes it and so forth. And so that was a game changer right there. I'm like, oh crud, now I need to start looking into, okay, so sourdough is a more sustainable thing. If I can't get my hands on yeast, I can do sourdough. How does your body process sourdough? Which different wheats do you use? What nutrients are left in them? That started a rabbit hole, right? Like a complete rabbit hole. Just alone in bread created a brand new rabbit hole. And I am telling you, the level of flavors that are possible with home milled flour or even the store-bought organic flours that have so many of the ancient grains. Spelt, never heard of spelt before. Bread made with spelt is delicious.
It's just like a different level of bread.
Right. Homemade pumpernickel bread, which is basically a rye bread made with the wheat berries ground. Like, the flavor level is so different than any rye bread you could buy at the store.
Because, bread is bread, but when you do bread at home, it's elevated to the next... I don't know. It's just, it's so good. It is.
So we went from this 4-ingredient yeast bleached flour bread, and then we started learning about sourdough. Well, sourdough I killed because I was putting bleached flour in it and using our faucet water that has chlorine in it. Go figure. And so if you want good bacteria to grow, you can't have bleach or chlorine. It will kill the bacteria, okay? So then I learned, okay, so unbleached flour, that was our thing that I had to start doing. And so I got better at doing that and figuring out, learning how to get the chlorine out of the water, either buying it that way or letting it sit for the 24 hours or boiling it and letting it cool. Like, there's different ways to do it. I learned all that. Part of that be from I really wanted to learn how to do this.
Right.
And part of it because, man, I botched up and I killed stuff and I can't keep affording sourdough starter if I keep killing it.
Right.
So we started sourdough with a basic flour. Right. And then we started experimenting with all these different flours and learning about them. And then from the flours went into the wheat berries. And I kind of got lax for a little bit on the wheat berries, but we're back in the swing of wheat berries, especially for rye flour. Wintertime is great for baking, so lots of bread in the winter. And then we go, and that started that whole thing, right? Well, now my daughter has to be 100% gluten-free. So now we're on the gluten-free route. I got really good at regular bread. Now I have to figure out the gluten-free bread, right? Oh. And all of that, and then the gluten-free baking, and be able to teach her how to do that, because this is going to be a lifelong thing for her to not be able to have gluten. So figuring that aspect out, it created a need, and then I came up and I met that need with learning a new skill. And I had to do it with intention because gluten-free is not freaking easy. And so then we went to, let's see, from bread, we kind of challenged ourselves with bread to not buy store-bought bread. We did it for a month and did fine. And then we really realized, why do we need to buy store-bought bread?
Right.
And so it's been over a year. I mean, we bought bagels twice.
Right.
And we bought hot dog buns for my daughter's, our daughter's graduation party. Yeah. And then, other than that, though, if I didn't make it, we didn't have it.
Yeah, in reality, when you have something so good, why go back to the not so good bread? It's what is.
It becomes habit.
Yeah, it just comes to like, why downgrade when you have it so good?
Right. And that's why downgrade, and then it also becomes habit, so it's second nature, so it's not hard anymore. People looking at sourdough from the outside are like, oh my gosh, it's like having another child. Like, you've got to feed it, you got to do this, you got to give it time to rise. It's not an instant gratification thing. Like,
but it's about habit.
It is, and as soon as you get it down, then there's room in your brain to learn something new. So then it's okay. So from bread, it went to I'm only buying whole chicken. Yeah. And okay, so now I can only buy whole chicken. How am I going to use my chicken? How can I utilize it to the best of its ability? Right. Oh my gosh, I use chicken broth all the time. Now I get to make homemade bone broth. I have something so good for me. I'm already buying the chicken. It has the bones. I make the bone broth. Okay, good. Well, my bone broth's not gelling like everybody else's. And then that rabbit hole starts. Okay, so how can I get this to gel and get the good collagen? And it creates a rabbit hole. And we're going to get off the food because I know we're going to make everybody hungry. But this is one of the biggest areas in our life that really started the intentional learning, because our food system is broken. The food that we are eating doesn't have the nutrients in it that it did many years ago. Yeah. It's just, there's a level that is different. Fast food joints are like, it blew my mind when I realized when you order a cheeseburger, most likely you're not getting cheese. No. You're getting some oil product. And I'm going, but I wanted cheese, right? And now you have all kinds of issues, new things coming out with new meats and things. So there are so many avenues that you can go down, and it's really important, I think, when it comes to intentionally learning, is to not get sucked down them all at once, because you can't. You're going to burn out, you'll freak out, it's going to be too much for you, because we are creatures of habit. And if it's too hard, we're going to the McDonald's drive-thru. If it's too hard, we're ordering takeout, deliver to our door. I have been guilty of making it too hard on myself, pushing myself out, and pizza is what is for dinner from Domino's. Not the best pizza on the planet, but do you know what? It'll save the day in a pinch. And so setting yourself up for success is important, and learning one thing at a time, stocking one thing. Don't go buy 50 million herbs at once. I know I recently did a haul back in, when was that haul? It was the August, September haul, where I did a huge order and had tons of spices in it. That is 3 years into us building our pantry, and we were very prepared for that order because we had a bunch of things that we needed to do. Prior to that, it's rosemary 1 month with an order, basil with another order, oregano with another order, and I slowly replace things with bulk. And so don't bite off more than you can chew.
No, I think that's very important, because on top of you already having places to store it and you're prep for it, also you have containers to store it. And as everybody knows, jars, containers, lids, everything's gone crazy high as cost.
Mm-hmm.
We don't expect you to go boom. I'm gonna do what she's doing like off the bat.
Dope.
It's something that we've been slowly growing over time to get to where we're at, and we can only get bigger from there.
So set realistic goals
Yes.
for yourself. Start with replacing certain things. So that's the food, right?
Yeah.
Then let's talk about, okay, gardening.
Yeah.
I'm going to be really honest. Whenever we get property, I'm not going to jump in and go do a massive garden, because guess what? Gardening takes a learning curve. If you are just starting, the fact of bugs and fertilizing and soil contaminants and all the things that can happen, there's so many things, because what you're really going to jump in and you're going to go, I want to grow lettuce, I want to grow tomatoes, but what you have to learn how to do is how to have healthy soil.
Yeah.
And when you have healthy soil is going to grow these foods for you.
Yeah,
And
I think the other thing is also learning your surroundings. Kind of like, let's say you do buy land, but do you want to actually build in a spot where water is going to be
pulling,
mm-hmm. or, you know, is it the right places to grow?
Learning what to look for,
Yeah.
and learning how to set things up, learning how much sun affects plants, what things like sun, what things don't. That's another rabbit hole to get down, and doing it slow is important, I think, because if you have some successes under your belt, you're going to do great. Now, we're in zone 9B, so we don't have harsh winters.
No.
Last year was colder, and this year's a colder winter.
Yeah.
But overall, we very rarely, only a few times in January, normally throughout the years, get under 28 degrees. And this year's set to be a little bit different. I'm pre-recording this, so I don't know what we are in January right this minute. But I know last year was colder. So
Yeah.
we get to grow an amazing fall garden. I grow in 3 GreenStalk towers, and the fall garden gets way less pest pressure. And then what happens is you get it bigger in the fall, okay? And then you let it be able to be harvested all throughout the winter. So I'm here not having to put a lot of effort in, and I don't have to be out there going crazy on stuff. And I have kale and collards and Swiss chard and mustard greens and Brussels sprouts and nasturtiums and radishes and peas and so many things growing. And this is the easy time, because it's not the crazy heat of the summer. There's not vacations the same way.
Yeah.
You've got routines in place because kids are back in school. You've got certain amount of time off for school breaks, but then you get rain coming in. So if you forget to water on a day, it's not the end of the world. Like, there's things to set you up for success. So if you're in like zone 9B, I think a fall garden is a great place to start for gardening. It gives you, it's actually a whole bunch of bang for your buck, because buying collards in the store or buying Swiss chard in the store, you get a bunch of them, and it's like 5 pieces of big Swiss chard, and you're paying like $4 for it or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's a huge
I think
saver.
Spring, summer is always the hardest one because of all the pests.
Spring is really bad for caterpillars. And summer is just, it's hot. It's so hot here in the summer that it like fries everything. But take a few things, learn. I highly suggest watching YouTubers that are in your area, and don't watch movies. Don't sit there and get stuck on Instagram reels and scroll through them. Learn something and go through and go, okay, so this person lives near me. This is what their garden was like last year, right? And follow along on those garden videos. Take notes. Figure out things that work, what don't, what needs nitrogen, what needs potassium or phosphate, and all of that stuff. Like, what does your garden need to thrive? What types of plants need what? And keep a journal. because you writing a journal down and keeping notes is going to be the best thing for you to learn what works for you and what didn't work for you.
Right.
I think that's key.
Yeah.
So that's kind of gardening. Learn things there. Again, take it slow. What's nice is if you're gardening, your gardening is going to jump into your kitchen and what you're cooking and growing in your kitchen. And those things will naturally flow together. So if you jump off with a huge garden, but you have no idea how to cook any of this stuff or preserve it, you're going to be overwhelmed in the kitchen and be freaking out. But if you start small in the garden and you learn how to preserve the stuff in the kitchen, how to cook with it on a daily basis, then that's amazing.
Yeah.
And if you really want to learn how to be like homesteady, play Chopped in your kitchen. Like, you know where you get a basket and you get random things? Have your kids go through the house if they're older, because otherwise you might end up with some really random ingredients. But you go through your house, your husband go through your house, whatever. Pick a few items out of the cabinet, make a meal out of it.
Yeah.
Figure out what to do with it. And do that when you don't have to do it. And it will start to teach you.
It makes it easier when let's say you have specific crops that season and you only have a specific things you can use and deal with, and you're like, okay, I know what to do with this because I've done it before. I'll just do this and turn this into a broth or a soup or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It just makes you more prepared.
I'll give you a secret. The two things that use up almost everything vegetable-wise in your fridge that's going to go bad is a stir fry and a soup. It's like you can use the same ingredients, use one of this, two of this, three of this, whatever, put it together, make a different type of soup. I call it a garden pot soup. I have a video on it. And then stir fry. It's amazing. Those are your two things that will be like quick, easy, done, right? So those learn that and learn the skills slowly. Then let's say you want to, you're going to be out on property and you want to raise animals. I'm not on a property yet, but I'm still watching videos on how to butcher chickens. I'm still getting books now on herbal medicine. I'm getting books now on butchering and how to make jerky and all of that. I try to source my meat well as best I can now and what we can afford. There's so many skills. If you have a garage, you can learn how to woodwork and do certain things, build certain things, fix things for yourself instead of hiring out. Watch YouTube videos on how to fix your plumbing. In an apartment, you can't really do that as much, so you got to call the maintenance people. Yeah. But depending on where you are will depend on what you can do, and it's having that mindset. I can't do this. That's not a good mindset. I can do this, or how can I do this? So find your barrier and start learning those skills. And as you do this continually, and I really feel like the kitchen is the easiest place to get into the mindset of it, but as you start to do it continually, it's an automatic thing.
Yeah.
It is something that's going, okay, so this is my problem. How can I do this? Your mindset, like that's will become your knee-jerk mindset, which has been huge for us.
Yeah, definitely.
Like when we first got married, there were so many things that we were like, I can't do this, I can't do this. And we were kind of stuck in certain things, like this is where we live, this is what I can't do, and so be it. Like that's just until one day.
Right.
And when we started shifting that,
yeah, we actually learned to do things and not just say can't, and just say, okay, I can do this, we can do this, we can do this.
Yeah.
And it's more a mental thing, is if you keep saying can't instead of trying to learn and actually do, then when you do it now, it's like, okay, I can do this, X and Y, you can do X and Y, and we can both get to Z by the time we're done with this.
Right. And we've had to do that in business. Both of us have had different jobs where we've had to learn different things and learn skills and really take it on us to learn the things that change and so forth. And then, dude, starting this whole
and it's not easy.
ebook, launching the ebooks, that was a learning curve in so many ways. I think you came home so many times watching me on the computer going, I'm like yelling at the computer, and then I'm like, just please work. And I'm like, I need a break.
And
he's just like,
that, the printer not working.
The printer's not.
Blah, blah, blah. So if it's not one thing, it's another.
So I can say I'm not technically savvy, but on the other side is I'm going to say I am learning how to work in connection with technology. Like I'm going to work in partnership with technology, and that is my learning thing.
There was this one time where I just learned, I'll take care of it. Step away. You just need to breathe. And then I dealt with it. It took me a little bit, but I dealt with it. And then she was like, oh, "Okay, thank you."
I can breathe now, and I can come back at it, and I'll talk nicely to the computer again. There's that scene in Dante's Peak where they're like, "Kick it, it will work." Like that was my line as a teenager, and now that I am an adult and we pay for things, kicking it and it will work is not an option when you have to pay for it. So I can't go that way. But I always think of it.
Another good one's from the Armageddon. American Components, Chinese components, they're all made by the same person.
Oh, yeah.
And they start banging with the hammer. And
the guy up in the space station thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think our challenge, the biggest thing when it comes to anywhere in life is you have to figure out where your pain points are.
Right.
And household stuff is easier. Like this is not working for me, or this schedule's not working, or this diet's not working. You find the pain point, you figure out what the solution for that is, and you start learning how to implement that solution, right? Now this can get a little bit harder when it comes to emotional things. And I think that this is something that takes even more intention. My husband and I learn very differently from each other.
Right.
Like we learn completely different. And so we had choices very early on to get frustrated with each other or to stop and slow down and figure out what the other person needs to learn, but also how their brain works.
Right.
And then what they have the desire to learn. One of our things we kind of figured out was you get very overwhelmed by a lot of options.
Yes.
I like to look at all the things and figure out all the things. And so what we've kind of come down to is I get lost down all the rabbit holes. I have
One
a
browser, brainstorm.
I'm a lost map. So I have 1,000 things that I'm looking at, right? And I narrow it down to like 3 to 5 things that I'm thinking. And then we sit down and we brainstorm from there together with 3 to 5 things. And then he's like, this is the direction we need to go.
Right.
And this is what we need to do. And really, he digs into that research on that. And so knowing that, it helps to eliminate so many irritations and arguments and frustrations with each other because we know how the other one thinks.
Yeah.
Right?
So in other ways, learn how your partner thinks.
Yeah. I mean, you have to learn your partner. You have to learn how to communicate. You have to intentionally learn how to communicate with the person that you're talking to.
Right.
Because even your kids, like each kid is very different, and you have to learn what makes them tick. And learning people and how to deal with people, you cannot expect everybody to learn and think exactly like you.
Yeah, even at your jobs, you can see the difference. Yeah, you can see that with people at work, that some people learn by doing the hands-on, or there's some people that learn just by reading it. And for me, I'm not a learn by reading. I'm a learn by doing.
Hmm.
But there's other people that learn by reading it or just seeing in a video. I'm like, oh, yeah, I can do that type of thing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong either way. It's just that both ways are the right way. It's just that some people do it easier and process it better by doing the way they know how to do it.
Correct. And I think it's funny because we're both hands-on learners. And so when we try to teach the other person something,
Yeah.
we have to be a hands-off teacher so they can be a hands-on learner.
It could be hard.
And that can be very hard.
Yes.
Because
Especially
usually if you're a hands-on learner, you're a hands-on teacher at the same time, but they need to be able to get their hands in.
Yeah. Especially with when like you want it done a specific way. Like I have my nitty gritty. I want you to do X and Y. I would say X and Y. But I think it's a way to explain it. X and Y.
And I'm like, oh, what about Z?
Yeah, and you're like, okay, well I can do X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, why not just go X, Y, Z? Like because if you do X, Y, by the time you get to Y, Z will almost be done.
Yeah. So it's just it's learning people. And part of learning people is learning yourself. Yeah. And learning what it is that motivates you, learning what it is that emotionally makes you feel safe, learning what it is that that connects you with somebody, learning what makes you rest and restore. There's so many things about you and how you tick. And if you know how you tick and you know how your things work and you've gone through that process, it's easier for you to go, okay, this is the process I went through to learn about myself. Now I can do that process with somebody else. Right. And so it took me years ago learning more about myself and how I operate to be able to come into our marriage and learn how he operates, which is very different, and how we emotionally deal with things. There are so many different times where we just have had to come at it from a place of understanding and learning instead of a place of assuming and irritation.
The biggest thing is you explaining to your partner, like for me, that I have a lot of issues sometimes comprehending or understanding because of my dyslexia. It's like, so can you explain to me in a different way so that I can process that and understand what I'm supposed to do?
Because he knows what he needs to learn it, and he knows that that's why he's not getting it.
Right.
And so then I stop and I think about it for a second, and sometimes it takes me more than a second. And then we'll come back at it and we'll do that. And we've both had to do that because sometimes he'll say things and it comes out really wonky. I'm like, I know you and I know your heart, and I don't think that's what you meant to say. So can you reroute and try to tell me what you meant to say?
Or like, what did you really mean to say?
What you really mean?
And I'm like explaining it in different ways to eventually she gets, and I'm like, okay, I get what you're saying.
I get it. We're good. And so it's really fun. That happened a couple times actually with my mom. And my mom's like, I don't think he meant what he said. No, he didn't. It's okay. Like, we'll reroute this. And so it's just funny because that's how we work. And I'll say things that I think are just like, this is just the way it is. It's fact. He's going to understand it. And he's like, wow, you're being really mean. Or like, the way you're saying this is like not okay, right? And so I had to learn how to, it's not always what I say, but how I say it, right? Same thing we teach our kids. But doing it in a way, not assuming that he understands the same thing that I do. Because we grew up with two very different lives, two very different backgrounds. Yeah. And bringing that together.
Not that it's wrong or anything.
No.
It's just that understanding each other is the key part. And that's where learning comes into big effect is
Mhm.
because if we learn how to communicate with each other, then everything is not as stressful and as hard.
And it is hard to do, and it takes major intentionality. And so that's why I wanted to tack this onto this, because we've talked about relationships in the past, we've talked about all kinds of things, but if you're intentionally learning, you need to start with intentionally learning about yourself, right? In how you tick, what you believe, intentionally figuring out what you believe in, and that comes into the spiritual aspect of your life. And then how you learn, how you process, how you deal with people, what motivates you, what you like, what you don't like. And then at that point, you can learn somebody else. And I think that's easier if you're single to do that.
Yeah.
But if you're not and you're married, I think it's important that you give grace to your partner. If you don't even know yourself, how do you expect them to know you? And how do you expect them to know how to deal with you and to communicate with you if you don't know what you need? And then do you really know what you need, or do you just know what you don't need,
and
right?
It's not it's something you just learn overnight either.
No.
We've been together for a little bit over 6 years,
yeah.
and we're still learning each other. And you know, the more you learn about each other, the stronger your connection.
We've been married for 6 years, but together for like seven and a half, almost 8. Yeah.
But you know what I mean. It's just that you still have to learn each other, and there doesn't go a day that I don't learn something new, and you know, and this is where I'm safe. This is my safe spot. This is where I can learn without, you know, being very judged or anything like that. And I appreciate everything that she's been helping me with, and you know,
I think though that that's true for both.
Yeah.
Like, I think that that's another key to learning with intention is setting your environment up to be a success for learning. So having support people to help you, having a safe place where you feel safe to go ahead.
Yeah.
Like, there's been so many things that in my life that I never even considered a possibility for me to learn. And without him giving me the support and the encouragement and the going, let's go alongside, or I know you can do this, it has been a game changer when it comes to stuff. Just preserving, man. I'm so paranoid about stuff like that. I can do things like I'm so worried I'm gonna kill somebody with it, and he's like, "Oh, let me try it." I'm like, "No, just smell it first." It's just like he just believes in me so much, and so it's just really cute. So setting yourself up with the things that you need to be able to learn are so important, and having somebody that encourages you is great. If not, really knowing yourself ahead of time is great, but somebody who's going to be there with you and grow with you is key. If you are not married and you are looking for somebody, I would say make sure that it is somebody who is going to grow with you and support you, not tell you what you want to hear, but tell you what you need to hear,
right.
And be that safety net. And
my biggest key is communication is key, understanding is key, and being supportive is also key. From what I know, a lot of really successful people have been successful because they had really good partners that helped them succeed and get to where they needed to be. And if you're not, I'm not saying that everybody's going to be the same, but having that somebody that gives you that go ahead and do this, or the cheering on and helping you be successful, will motivate you to push forward and be all you can be type of thing.
And then don't give up.
Yeah.
That's And just as an example, the ebook thing, man, the amount of times I have tried recipes and failed at the recipes and done some modifications and things, and how much you're doing it, it's like, man, this is not like coming easy.
It's not.
This is this something I should really be doing? And it comes back down to the why. Why am I doing it? Well, because my daughter has to be gluten-free, and I know me taking my time learning these skills and teaching them to her, one, it's bettering our relationship. Two, it's leaving a legacy for her for the rest of her life, something she can go back to, and it's going to help her, because I have the time right now to be able to do it, and she's busy doing college and all these other things. And so let me fail forward and figure it out and share it with you guys along the way to try to help solve some of your problems.
And the other advantages of her doing it, because, you know, there's a lot of people who've written books about it, is she's getting the experience on learning how to do it herself also. So it's not a matter of doing it for others, but you're also getting the experience.
I'm learning it
how to do it for yourself and for us at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's a win-win for everybody.
It is. It really is. And sometimes we do things scared, and sometimes we do things because we just know that they're the right thing to do, and we need to learn that skill, no matter how terrifying it can be sometimes. And so, that's our encouragement to you for learning with intention. I think there's so many avenues that you can learn, and you learning with intention is going to help be an example to your children to do the same thing. And admitting that you don't know everything and that we have to learn things, I think is important, because all throughout life, our kids are going to have to learn. All throughout life, we're going to learn. And so I would love to know, and I know you like the comments. So what is it that you are focusing on learning right now?
Yes.
What did you learn last year? And what are you focusing on learning right now that you're going to be going through this year? And
or
what skills?
Maybe even pointers that they can give us on how to, something that they learned that we might not know. I mean, they're not going to know what we know, but something that really inspired them. Just let us know what inspired you, if you're doing this already.
Yeah.
What inspired you?
What's your why?
Yeah, what's your why? Pretty much.
Love to know what your why is. So that's kind of what we have right now. We will see you back here next week for our season finale of season 2. If you have missed anything from season 2 or season 1, I will have a link in the description below that you can watch anything that you've missed. But he always likes, so whenever he's on here, he's very good at remembering this.
Oh, don't forget to hit like if you like these videos, and leave a comment and subscribe if you would like to help support us.
Yeah, and maybe share it with somebody that you think may appreciate this conversation. It's just good food for thought.
Yeah.
Get in there, start talking, and start learning, because that's the only way to implement and change anything.
Yeah.
So, thank you for watching. We will see you on the next video.
Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.